Away from that, now, when the coronavirus global pandemic struck Kenya, there was widespread anxiety over what would follow, given the devastating effects the disease had in Europe and Asia, as well as the United States. And as expected, the media would play a critical role in not only informing, but also educating the masses. 1 year down the line, KTN's Duncan Khaemba takes a look at how the media in Kenya covered the pandemic.
On Friday, 13th March 2020, mid-morning at the steps of Harambee House, the President's official office, the government delivered the dreaded news to the country.
Fellow Kenyans, I want to inform you that the Ministry of Health has confirmed the first coronavirus case in Kenya.
Following the announcement and later the containment measures, Kenyans looked to the media for the latest and constant updates on this never-before-seen phenomenon, leaving the media to shoulder the burden of effectively and efficiently relaying the real-time information.
During that COVID-19 pandemic, it was always reading and keeping in touch with what was happening, keeping in touch with Geneva, WHO throughout the press conferences so as to learn what was happening. So it was more about finding out what is new, writing those stories, doing those stories for TV, doing radio interviews.
We decided to curate content that has anything to do with COVID into one segment, whereby when you get to the website, you're able to get everything. Anything to do with COVID, you're able to get it from one location. So that was the first thing that we did. And then after that, we decided to push it further, to come up with a tool to help people now to understand if they have it was more of like a test. Not necessarily scientific, or, but at least for someone to be able to tell whether they have the symptoms for COVID or something like that. Yeah.
COVID-19 disrupted media activity, forcing a paradigm shift in operations to comply with the new normal.
It reached a point where to comply with the requirements of social distancing, we had to get some of our people to work from home. And this was a very big logistical challenge because it required that we take some of our equipment to people's homes.
A Media Council of Kenya survey shows that television was the most relied upon media for COVID-19 updates in the past 1 year.
Which means our media was doing well, because people would not be seeking information from, they would have gone, for example, on online platforms.
A fairly high number of Kenyans also invested a lot of their time scoring the internet for information.
There's something else we introduced on the website, which was the graphs, to be able to tell how people, let's say the deaths and also the number of people who have been affected.
Mainly it was about what is new. Because remember, this was an evolving story. So the priority was what is new, what has changed, are the protocols changing, are the guidelines changing? Access to information became a big challenge after the government invoked the Public Health Act, rendering the information to mostly flow one way.
So again, you start seeing that initially, while COVID is purely a public health issue, initially government approached it from a very military security approach.
The way we operate as media, single sourcing is a problem, and therefore being put in a situation where we would only source information from one point was problematic.
Another nightmare was the blatant attacks on the freedom of the press. For instance, on 27th March 2020, there was an uproar when a Nation Media Group journalist was clobbered by police.
While they are trying to shine a light on the police brutality that is going on, the police turned their violence on the journalists.
Between March and around September, actually by 2nd November, we documented nearly 70 cases of journalists who had been assaulted, denied access to information, beaten.
But even amid heavy consumption of the media during this time, the sector, like others in the economy, took a hit, and revenues took a nosedive, occasioning job losses and pay cuts.
Consumption on digital platforms actually shot up quite significantly. What that therefore meant was that media houses, like many businesses, were affected in a very significant way in terms of revenues, and therefore survival. So this forced some very painful decisions.
Like other Kenyans, journalists were not spared either.
It was a bit of a shocker, in such a manner that I was all alone, full of uncertainties. You don't know what will happen next. Some guys kept calling me, asking me if I'm okay.
As the country crosses into its second year with the pandemic still hanging around its neck, one can only hope for the best. A newsroom is always a beehive of activity. However, in 2020, when change struck, the media industry had also to change its mode of operation. Duncan, Khaemba, KTN News, Nairobi.